It's very cute. She wrote this today, sat in the garden.
Oh.
And Mike, would you tell me again that everything's going to be okay?
Oh, Becky. Frankie, I promise everything's going to be okay.
Oh, it is nice, isn't it? It is nice. I see why people like it.
What's nice?
Being told everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay, Frankie.
Oh my God, I'm getting it from all sides. Yes. Yes.
Yes, Frankie, everything is going to be okay.
Oh my God, this is the best Standalone Sunday ever.
Please? A perfect lawn's a much sought after thing. The turf, well manicured, is smooth and green. An even and untouched expanse proclaims, I care what others think of what I've seen. Our lawn does not conform to this. Tall seeds head sprout 12 inches high at times. Much moss and chickweed, ladies' mantle too, loved buttercups and hated dandelions. But overall the creeping clover spreads, the trefoil leaves a pleasant dark green hue. New to suburbia, rarely do we cut the lawn, so many petaled cream and blush pink flowers protrude. This leads to our delight to swarms of bees, their buzzing a melodious background sound, bewitching, carefully searching every flower, fuzzy black and yellow striped, enchanting, round. The clover's soft and cool to naked feet. The leaves don't prick your legs when you sit down. But due to all the happy, busy bees, it makes it very hard to cross the lawn.
Fucking adorable.
It's really quite difficult to walk across our lawn right now.
Is it that full of bees?
Covered in bees.
I've got loads on the
I'm covered in bees!
There's loads of them on the foxglove, but not that much. I've actually noticed a significant decline in them.
They live in the roof of our shed and also under the gutters of our house, so...
Yeah, that's where all the bees have gone. You know, all of the reports about how, you know, the bees are disappearing. They're not. They've just
I went to
come to
Katie.
live with you guys.
They're just hiding.
Scones and poetry, you say? I don't blame them. If I were a bee, which I'm not.
That's scones, Robert!
Well, who's been a busy little bee?
Robert, speak to us, Robert. So
Hello, sorry. I've got very confused for a second because I joined a few minutes late and then you just sort of said scones. I thought you can't see my scones, so that's... Yeah. There are scones.
That looks like really good jam. What kind of jam is it?
Morrison's the best raspberry conserve.
Ooh. You can tell it's posh because it's conserve rather than jam. Fancy jam.
And then one up from that, is it compote after that? Is that the order?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. With
Sorry.
a little hat on it. Oh, gesundheit.
Okay.
This is nice. This is nice. This is just rounding off my steadily improving Sunday. Oh, Nick, are you not very well, my love?
Oh, hay fever.
Oh, Peanut.
Ever since that walk in Yorkshire last year, I don't know if you remember, when I had my first ever like dance with hay fever, and then this year, like I'm terrible. I don't know if you can see my left eye right now, but
It's quite a kind of like dashing piratical look.
Yeah, I've been a mess today.
If you kind of drew a line in like white pencil across your face, you could pretend that it was like, you know, a scar from an old
Oh, that your powers of attention.
I can sort of see you playing Scar, actually. I think you would be a good Scar. Make it that will. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the best character. Fight me.
Kiki,
What?
wait, we talked about Lion King, yes? Rafiki, also great.
Oh, I could have known that would bring you out of your muted state, my love.
Just talking to the housemate.
Nothing like some Asante Sana with a squash banana.
Nala is
the phrase
pretty
that I never
epic.
knew I wanted to hear you say.
Nala's pretty epic in the stage version.
Ooh, I haven't seen the. Oh no, I have seen the stage version long ago with the birds from the balconies. Ah. Oh. So
Yeah, there's a fantastic song where like Scar's like, "Hey, I'm not the headline unless I can have cubs." Nala, you're pretty sexy, and she's just like, "Fuck off, Scar. I'm just gonna go off and find Simba," and she's got like 2 whole songs of awesomeness.
Nice.
We had cake today, birthday cake. Duncan's 24, my oldest.
Ah, happy birthday.
Ooh.
Happy birthday, Duncan.
He's in the garden with his girlfriend.
Is he not coming in for story time? Does he not fancy some Ursula Le Guin?
Oh, he's either playing on the computer or he reads a lot, but he plays a lot as well.
That's fair enough. How are we doing for time, Les enfants?
12 past.
12 past. Holy shit! Holy shit! Right.
Malcolm looks like he has long hair.
No, it's a hoodie.
Oh, it's a hoodie.
We got Malcolm.
Yes, long
Hi,
non
Malcolm.
ginger
Hey,
hair.
babe. Ainsley and Tara are here as well.
Yay!
Hi, beauties. Okay. God, what a good gang. What a good gang we've assembled. Ugh. Right. So, hi, Ainsley. I love you. Potato, you Ainsley. Okay, so the essay that I have to read today is called Dogs, Cats and Dancers, Thoughts About Beauty. Let's see how long it takes. It's not terribly long, and if there is an appetite for more, then I can read something else. But I hope you enjoy this. I love her. Okay. It's beautiful. So this is Dogs, Cats and Dancers, Thoughts About Beauty by Ursula K. Le Guin from the collection The Wave in the Mind, Talks and Essays on the Reader, the Writer, the Reader and the Imagination, which Jeremy sent to me. Thank you very much, Jeremy, if you ever watch this. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. An earlier version of this piece was published in 1992 in the Reflections section of Allure magazine, where it was retitled The Stranger Within. I have fiddled around with it a good bit since then. Dogs don't know what they look like. Dogs don't even know what size they are. No doubt it's our fault for breeding them into such weird shapes and sizes. My brother's dachshund, standing tall at 8 inches, would attack a Great Dane in the full conviction that she could tear it apart. When a little dog is assaulting its ankles, the big dog often stands there looking confused. Should I eat it? Will it eat me? I am bigger than it, aren't I? But then the Great Dane will come and try and sit in your lap and mash you flat under the impression that it is a peekapoo. My children used to run at sight of a nice deerhound named Teddy, because Teddy was so glad to see them that he wagged his whiplash tail so hard that he knocked them over. Dogs don't notice when they put their paws in the quiche. Dogs don't know where they begin and end. Cats know exactly where they begin and end. When they walk slowly out the door that you are holding open for them and pause, leaving their tail just an inch or two inside the door, they know it. They know you have to keep holding the door open. That is why their tail is there. It is a cat's way of maintaining a relationship. House cats know that they are small and that it matters. When a cat meets a threatening dog and can't make either a horizontal or a vertical escape, it'll suddenly triple its size, inflating itself into a sort of weird fur blowfish. And it may work because the dog gets confused again. I thought that was a cat. Aren't I bigger than cats? Will it eat me? Once, I met a huge black balloon-like object levitating along the sidewalk, making a horrible moaning growl. It pursued me across the street. I was afraid it might eat me. When we got to our front steps, it began to shrink and leaned on my leg, and I recognized my cat, Leonard. He had been alarmed by something across the street. Cats have a sense of appearance. Even when they're sitting doing the wash in that silly position with one leg behind the other ear, they know what you're sniggering at. They simply choose not to notice. I knew a pair of Persian cats once. The black one always reclined on a white cushion on the couch, and the white one on the black cushion next to it. It wasn't just that they wanted to leave cat hair where it showed up best, though cats are always thoughtful about that. They knew where they looked best. The lady who provided their pillows called them her decorator cats. A lot of us humans are like dogs. We really don't know what size we are, how we're shaped, what we look like. The most extreme example of this ignorance must be the people who design the seats on airplanes. At the other extreme, the people who have the most accurate, vivid sense of their own appearance may be dancers. What dancers look like is, after all, what they do. I suppose this is also true of fashion models, but in such a limited way. In modelling, what you look like to a camera is all that matters. That's very different from really living in your body the way a dancer does. Actors must have a keen self-awareness and learn to know what their body and face are doing and expressing. But actors use words in their art, and words are great illusion makers. A dancer can't weave that word screen around herself. All a dancer has to make her art from is her appearance, position, and motion. The dancers I've known have no illusions or confusions about what space they occupy. They hurt themselves a lot. Dancing is murder on feet and pretty tough on joints, but they never, ever step in the quiche. At a rehearsal, I saw a young man of the troupe lean over like a tall willow to examine his ankle. "Oh," he said, "I have an owie on my almost perfect body." It was endearingly funny, but it was also simply true. His body is almost perfect. He knows it is, and knows where it isn't. He keeps it as nearly perfect as he can, because his body is his instrument, his medium, how he makes a living, and what he makes art with. He inhabits his body as fully as a child does, but much more knowingly, and he's happy about it. I like that about dancers. They're so much happier than dieters and exercisers. Guys go jogging up my street, thump, 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 grim faces, glazed eyes, seeing nothing, ears plugged by earphones. If there was a quiche on the sidewalk, their weird, gaudy running shoes would squish right through it. Women talk endlessly about how many pounds last week, how many pounds to go. If they saw a quiche, they'd scream. If your body isn't perfect, punish it. No pain, no gain, all that stuff. Perfection is lean and taut and hard, like a boy athlete of 20, a girl gymnast of 12. What kind of body is that for a man of 50 or a woman of any age? Perfect? What's perfect? A black cat on a white cushion? A white cat on a black one? A soft brown woman in a flowery dress? There are a whole lot of ways to be perfect, and not one of them is attained through punishment. Every culture has its ideal of human beauty, and especially of female beauty. It's amazing how harsh some of these ideals are. An anthropologist told me that among the Inuit people he'd been with, if you could lay a ruler along a woman's cheekbones and it didn't touch her nose, she was a knockout. In this case, beauty is very high cheekbones and a very flat nose. The most horrible criterion of beauty I've yet met is the Chinese bound foot. Feet dwarfed and crippled to be 3 inches long increased a girl's attractiveness, therefore her money value. Now that's serious, no pain, no gain. But it's all serious. Ask anybody who has ever worked 8 hours a day in 3-inch heels. Or I think of when I was in high school in the 1940s. The white girls got their hair crinkled up by chemicals and heat so it would curl, and the black girls got their hair mashed flat by chemicals and heat so it wouldn't curl. Home perms hadn't been invented yet, and a lot of kids couldn't afford these expensive treatments, so they were wretched because they couldn't follow the rules of beauty. Beauty always has rules. It's a game. I resent the beauty game when I see it controlled by people who grab fortunes from it and don't care who they hurt. I hate it when I see it making people so self-dissatisfied that they starve and deform and poison themselves. Most of the time, I just play the game myself in a very small way, buying a new lipstick, feeling happy about a pretty new silk shirt. It's not going to make me beautiful, but it's beautiful itself, and I like wearing it. People have decorated themselves as long as they've been people. Flowers in the hair, tattoo lines on the face, kohl on the eyelids, pretty silk shirts, things that make you feel good, things that suit you. Like a white pillow suits a lazy black cat. That's the fun part of the game. One rule of the game, in most times and places, is that it's the young who are beautiful. The beauty ideal is always a youthful one. This is partly simple realism. The young are beautiful, the whole lot of them. The older I get, the more clearly I see that and enjoy it. But it gets harder and harder to enjoy facing the mirror. Who is that old lady? Where is her waist? I got resigned, sort of, to losing my dark hair and getting all this limp grey stuff instead. But now am I going to lose even that and end up all pink scalp? I mean, enough already. Is that another mole, or am I turning into an Appaloosa? How large can a knuckle get before it becomes a knee joint? I don't want to see, I don't want to know. And yet, I look at men and women my age and older, and their scalps and knuckles and spots and bulges, though various and interesting, don't affect what I think of them. Some of these people I consider to be very beautiful, and others I don't. For old people, beauty doesn't come free with the hormones the way it does for the young. It has to do with bones. It has to do with who the person is. More and more clearly, it has to do with what shines through those gnarly faces and bodies. I know what worries me most when I look in the mirror and see the old woman with no waist. It's not that I've lost my beauty, I never had enough to carry on about. It's that that woman doesn't look like me. She isn't who I thought I was. My mother told me once that walking down a street in San Francisco, she saw a blonde woman coming towards her in a coat just like hers. With a shock, she realized she was seeing herself in a mirrored window. But she wasn't a blonde, she was a redhead. Her hair had faded slowly, and she'd always thought of herself, seen herself as a redhead, till she saw the change that made her, for a moment, a stranger to herself. We're like dogs, maybe. We don't really know where we begin and end. In space, yes, but in time, no. All little girls are supposed, by the media anyhow, to be impatient to reach puberty and to put on training bras before there's anything to train. But let me speak for the children who dread and are humiliated by the changes adolescence brings to their body. I remember how I tried to feel good about the weird, heavy feelings, the cramps, the hair where there hadn't been hair, the fat places that used to be thin places. They were supposed to be good because they all meant that I was becoming a woman. And my mother tried to help me, but we were both shy and maybe both a little scared. Becoming a woman is a big deal, not always a good one. When I was 13 and 14, I felt like a whippet suddenly trapped inside a great lumpy St. Bernard. I wonder if boys don't often feel something like that as they get their growth. They're forever being told that they're supposed to be big and strong, but I think some of them miss being slight and lithe. A child's body is very easy to live in. An adult body isn't. The change is hard. And it's such a tremendous change that it's no wonder a lot of adolescents don't know who they are. They look in the mirror. Is that me? Who's me? And then it happens again when you're 60 or 70. Cats and dogs are smarter than us. They look in the mirror once when they're a kitten or a puppy. They get all excited and run around hunting for the kitten or the puppy behind the glass. And then they get it. It's a trick. Fake, and they never look again. My cat will meet my eyes in the mirror, but never his own. Who I am is certainly part of how I look, and vice versa. I want to know where I begin and end, what size I am, and what suits me. People who say the body is unimportant floor me. How can they believe that? I don't want to be a disembodied brain floating in a glass jar in a sci-fi movie, and I don't believe I'll ever be a disembodied spirit floating ethereally about. I am not in this body, I am this body, waste or no waste. But all the same, there's something about me that doesn't change, hasn't changed. Through all the remarkable, exciting, alarming and disappointing transformations my body has gone through, there is a person there who isn't only what she looks like. And to find her and know her, I have to look through, look in, look deep, not only in space, but in time. I am not lost until I lose my memory. There's the ideal beauty of youth and health, which never really changes and is always true. There's the ideal beauty of movie stars and advertising models, the beauty game ideal, which changes its rules all the time and from place to place and is never entirely true. And there's an ideal beauty that is harder to define or understand, because it occurs not just in the body, but where the body and the spirit meet and define each other. And I don't know if it has any rules. One way I can try to describe that kind of beauty is to think of how we imagine people in heaven. I don't mean some literal heaven promised by a religion as an article of belief. I mean just the dream, the yearning wish we have that we could meet our beloved dead again. Imagine that the circle is unbroken. You meet them again on that beautiful shore. What do they look like? People have discussed this for a long time. I know one theory is that everybody in heaven is 33 years old. If that includes people who die as babies, I guess they grow up in a hurry on the other side. And if they die at 83, do they have to forget everything they've learned for 50 years? Obviously, one can't get too literal with these imaginings. If you do, you run right up against that old, cold truth. You can't take it with you. But there is a real question there. How do we remember? How do we see a beloved person who is dead? My mother died at 83 of cancer, in pain. Her spleen enlarged so that her body was misshapen. Is that the person I see when I think of her? Sometimes. I wish it were not. It is a true image, yet it blurs, it clouds a truer image. It is one memory among 50 years of memories of my mother. It is the last in time. Beneath it, behind it, is a deeper, complex, ever-changing image made from imagination, hearsay, photographs, memories. I see a little red-haired child in the mountains of Colorado, a sad-faced, delicate college girl, a kind, smiling young mother, a brilliantly intellectual woman, a peerless flirt, a serious artist, a splendid cook. I see her rocking, weeding, writing, laughing. I see the turquoise bracelets on her delicate, freckled arm. I see, for a moment, all that at once. I glimpse what no mirror can reflect, the spirit flashing out across the years. Beautiful. That must be what the great artists see and paint. That must be why the tired, aged faces in Rembrandt's portraits give us such delight. They show us beauty not skin deep, but life deep. In Brian Lanker's album of photographs, I Dream a World, face after wrinkled face tells us that getting old can be worth the trouble if it gives you time to do some soul making. Not all the dancing we do is danced with the body. The great dancers know that, and when they leap, our soul leaps with them. We fly, we're free. And the poets know that kind of dancing. Let Yeats say it. O chestnut tree, great-rooted blossomer, are you the leaf, the blossom, or the bowl? O body swayed to music, O brightening dance, how can we know the dancer from the dance?
So good. Lovely, Guin.
Wow.
Right?
You were on top form today.
I mean, it's all Ursula. That's all Ursula all the way down.
Except for the portrayal, which is totally Frankie.
Myself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
Love you.
We'll just wait 5 minutes then read it again because I'd be happy with that.
Wasn't it brilliant?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
I like that Ainsley's cat came at just an appropriate moment.
Did it? Oh, I missed that. Cat's like, you rang? Wow.
She was like, I heard someone talking about me. Obviously, she likes your voice. She doesn't come for Zoom chats regularly.
Oh. Cat, that's the greatest compliment.
She comes for my mother. She's like, oh, I recognize you.
I really enjoyed the quiche, which was the gift that just kept on giving in that particular essay.
It's so good. Oh, I could just fancy a quiche as well. Unstepped in.
I make great quiche.
She does make great quiche.
I bet you do.
Is your cat not pawing at the door to be let in throughout that?
No, she wasn't. She's
Oh.
probably out murdering something. She'll be off on the murder tonight.
Okay. She's got a nice little present for you later.
Yeah. Thank you.
Learned that she can't just nudge the door open anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Now that the door closes properly.
Maybe she'll bring you a quiche.
Good. Yeah, she's going to have to start upping her gift game if she wants me to let her in the room now. Is that a dead mole? Ugh. Where's my quiche? Was that sufficient for people, or do people want another?
25 to 10.
It's what, my love?
It'll be 25 to 10.
Only 25 to 10. Could potentially do. Would people like another one?
More.
Ah.
Malcolm is nodding from the cupboard.
I run away because Gustav's smashing things, but
What is Malcolm doing?
What is Malcolm doing?
Malcolm, what
He's
are you
disappeared
doing?
into. I think he's trying to reenact Narnia. He's going through the closet to try and
What's
discover a new
the
land.
bicycle? He's put a bike in the cupboard? I'm not sure.
I think he's fixing his bike.
Is that a drying rack in the cupboard? Maybe he's doing things with washing.
There's definitely a bicycle involved.
He's so enigmatic. Malcolm, you're so enigmatic.
What happens when you're muted?
You need to unmute him, Frankie, so he can talk to us.
I didn't mute him.
He muted
He
himself.
muted himself.
Very responsible.
Myself, because I was making monstrous noises.
You're growing as a person, my darling.
Oh, thank you. I was focusing on my fault. Which is
Okay.
good for me. I don't do that so good very often.
Are we getting more Ursula? Are we getting a different author?
I think, should we do another Ursula?
Yeah.
more
Okay.
Ursula.
So, how about this? How about this? How about this? There is the first piece in the book, isn't too long. It's called Introducing Myself. And her note in it is written in the early 90s as a performance piece, performed a couple of times since and slightly updated for this volume. So I think it's pretty good. Like, it's quite 90s, but
The shell
it's
suits.
particular, so fuck yeah. So let's do that one, and then there is a very small one after that if people still have the appetite. Excuse me. So, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Introducing myself. I am a man. Now, you may think I've made some kind of silly mistake about gender, or maybe that I'm trying to fool you because my first name ends in A and I own 3 bras and I've been pregnant 5 times, and other things like that that you may have noticed, little details. But details don't matter. If we have anything to learn from politicians, it's that details don't matter. I am a man. And I want you to believe and accept this as a fact, just as I did for many years. You see, when I was growing up at the time of the wars of the Medes and Persians, and when I went to college just after the 100 Years' War, and when I was bringing up my children during the Korean, Cold and Vietnam Wars, there were no women. Women are a very recent invention. I predate the invention of women by decades. Well, if you insist on pedantic accuracy, women have been invented several times in wildly varying localities, but the inventors just didn't know how to sell a product. Their distribution techniques were rudimentary and their market research was nil, and so of course the concept just didn't get off the ground. Even with a genius behind it, an invention has to find its market, and it seemed like for a long time the idea of women just didn't make it to the bottom line. Models like the Austen and the Bronte were too complicated, and people just laughed at the suffragette, and the wolf was way too far ahead of its time. So when I was born, there actually were only men. People were men. They all had one pronoun, his pronoun. So that's who I am. I am the generic he, as in, if anybody needs an abortion, he will have to go to another state. Or a writer knows which side his bread is buttered on. That's me, the writer, him. I am a man. Not maybe a first-rate man. I'm perfectly willing to admit that I may in fact be a kind of second-rate or imitation man, a pretender him. As a him, I am to a genuine male him as a microwaved fish stick is to a whole grilled Chinook salmon. I mean, after all, can I inseminate? Can I belong to the Bohemian Club? Can I run General Motors? Theoretically, I can, but you know where theory gets us. Not to the top of General Motors. And on the day when a Radcliffe woman is president of Harvard University, you wake me up and tell me, will you? Only you won't have to, because there aren't any more Radcliffe women. They were found to be unnecessary and abolished. And then I can't write my name with P in the snow, or it would be awfully laborious if I did. I can't shoot my wife and children and some neighbours and then myself. Oh, to tell you the truth, I can't even drive. I never got my licence. I chickened out. I take the bus. That is terrible. I admit it, I am actually a very poor imitation or substitute man. And you could see it when I tried to wear those army surplus clothes with ammunition pockets that were trendy and I looked like a hen in a pillowcase. I am shaped wrong. People are supposed to be lean. You can't be too thin, everybody says so, especially anorexics. People are supposed to be lean and taut, because that's how men generally are, lean and taut. Or anyway, that's how a lot of men start out, and some of them even stay that way. And men are people, people are men. That has been well established. And so people, real people, the right kind of people, are lean. But I'm really lousy at being people, because I'm not lean at all, but sort of podgy with actual fat places. I am untaught. And then people are supposed to be tough. Tough is good. But I've never been tough. I'm sort of soft and actually sort of tender, like a good steak. Or like a Chinook salmon, which isn't lean and tough, but very rich and tender. But then salmon aren't people, or anyway, we have been told they aren't in recent years. We have been told that there is only one kind of people, and they are men. And I think it is very important that we all believe that. It's certainly important to the men. What it comes down to, I guess, is that I am just not manly. Like Ernest Hemingway was manly, the beard and the guns and the wives and the little short sentences. I do try. I have this sort of beardoid thing that keeps trying to grow, 9 or 10 hairs on my chin, sometimes even more. But what do I do with the hairs? I tweak them out. Would a man do that? Men don't tweak, men shave. Anyhow, white men shave, being hairy, and I have even less choice about being white or not than I do about being a man or not. I am white whether I like being white or not. The doctors can do nothing for me. But I do my best not to be white, I guess, under the circumstances, since I don't shave. I tweak. But it doesn't mean anything because I don't really have a real beard that amounts to anything. And I don't have a gun, and I don't have even one wife, and my sentences tend to go on and on and on with all this syntax in them. Ernest Hemingway would have died rather than used syntax, or semicolons. I use a lot of half-assed semicolons. There was one of them just now. That was a semicolon after semicolons, and another one after now. And another thing, Ernest Hemingway would rather have died than get old. And he did. He shot himself. A short sentence. Anything rather than a long sentence. A life sentence. Death sentences are short and very, very manly. Life sentences aren't. They go on and on, all full of syntax and qualifying clauses and confusing references and getting old. And that brings up the real proof of what a mess I have made of being a man. I am not even young. Just about the time they finally started inventing women, I started getting old. I went right on doing it, shamelessly. I have allowed myself to get old and haven't done one single thing about it, with a gun or anything. What I mean is, if I had any real self-respect, wouldn't I at least have had a facelift or some liposuction? Although liposuction sounds to me like what they do a lot of on TV when they are young or youngish, though not when they are old, and when one of them is a man and the other a woman, although not under any other circumstances. What they do is, this young or youngish man and woman take hold of each other and slide their hands around on each other, and then they perform liposuction. You're supposed to watch them while they do it. They move their heads around and flatten out their mouth and nose on the other person's mouth and nose and open their mouths in different ways. And you are supposed to feel sort of hot or wet or something as you watch. What I feel is like I'm watching two people doing liposuction. And this is why they finally invented women? Surely not. As a matter of fact, I think sex is even more boring as a spectator sport than all the other spectator sports, even baseball. If I am required to watch a sport instead of doing it, I'll take show jumping. The horses are really good looking. The people who ride them are mostly these sort of Nazis, but like all Nazis, they are only as powerful and successful as the horse they are riding. And it is, after all, the horse who decides whether to jump that 5-barred gate or stop short and let the Nazi foal off over its neck. Only usually the horse doesn't remember it has the option. Horses aren't awfully bright. But in any case, show jumping and sex have a great deal in common, though you can usually only get show jumping on American TV if you can pick up a Canadian channel, which is not true of sex. Given the option, though I often forget that I have an option, I certainly would watch show jumping and do sex. Never the other way around. But I'm too old now for show jumping, and as for sex, who knows? I do. You don't. Of course, golden oldies are supposed to jump from bed to bed these days, just like the horses jumping the 5-barred gates. Bounce, bounce, bounce. But a good deal of this super sex at 70 business seems to be theory again, like the woman CEO of General Motors and the woman president of Harvard. Theory is invented mostly to reassure people in their 40s, that is, men who are worried. That is why we had Karl Marx, and why we still have economists, though we seem to have lost Karl Marx. As such, theory is dandy. As for practice, or praxis, as the Marxists used to call it apparently, because they liked X's, you wait till you are 60 or 70, and then you can tell me about your sexual practice, or praxis, if you want to, though I make no promises that I will listen. And if I do listen, I will probably be extremely bored and start looking for some show jumping on the TV. In any case, you are not going to hear anything from me about my sexual practice or praxis, then, now, or ever. But all that aside, here I am, old. When I wrote this, I was 60 years old. A 60-year-old smiling public man, as Yeats said, but then he was a man. And now I am over 70, and it's all my own fault. I get born before they invent women, and I live all these decades trying so hard to be a good man that I forget all about staying young, and so I didn't. And my tenses get all mixed up. I just am young, and then all of a sudden I was 60 and maybe 80, and what next? Not a whole lot. I keep thinking there must have been something that a real man could have done about it. Something short of guns, but more effective than oil of Olay. But I failed. I did nothing. I absolutely failed to stay young. And then I look back on all my strenuous efforts, because I really did try. I tried hard to be a man, to be a good man, and I see how I failed at that. I am, at best, a bad man. An imitation, phony, second-rate him with a 10-hair beard and semicolons. And I wonder what was the use. Sometimes I think I might just as well give the whole thing up. Sometimes I think I might just as well exercise my option, stop short in front of the 5-barred gate and let the Nazi fall off on his head. If I'm no good at pretending to be a man and no good at being young, I might just as well start pretending that I am an old woman. I'm not sure that anybody has invented old women yet. but it might be worth trying.
Yay!
Weird.
Cool philosophy, basically.
Everyone should go and read that new book about how medicine doesn't admit that women exist.
Yeah.
And like no drug trials have women in, and like crash test dummies are all men so that women die in car crashes, and like how the whole and smartphones are big because men have longer thumbs, and all the ways that the world is not arranged for women. Did you know that female police officers wear male police officer uniforms because female police officer uniforms don't have pockets big enough to hold the equipment that female police officers need to use?
What?
What?
I know!
Are you fucking shitting me?
No!
Jesus fucking Christ! Pockets! Pockets, 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 pockets!
Is it sort
Give
of,
us pockets!
It's like half your photos on Facebook.
Yes! Pockets for women! Give us freedom, equality, and pockets!
I love you, Frankie.
I love you, Katie.
I was thinking about the medical trial stuff quite a lot during some of that.
Yeah. Also, like, this book, which everyone should read because it's fantastic, talks about how, like, sexually women are also viewed as second-rate men. And it's really good, and everyone should read it.
Is that, which one was that one? Missed that? Is that Come As You Are?
Come As You Are.
Is that, yeah, that's the one that you were reading, wasn't it, love?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Oh, I'm all like sweaty with the sweat of righteousness now.
Oh, that sweaty, sweaty righteousness.
And go and wipe myself on an MRA. And on that note, I'll stop recording.